Start.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. First of all, I hope it's okay that we're doing this in. Good evening. I hope it's okay that we're doing this in English. Ik kan ook in het Nederlands spreken, maar ik denk dat voor jullie en voor mij is het beter dat ik het in Engels doen. Jij gaat mij beter begrijpen en ik ga het in Engels doen. Okay? Dankjewel. Okay, first of all, I know all of you and all of us are living together through these, what they call crazy times, turbulent times, and something that we would never have imagined going back even a few months ago. And everyone living at home and stuck, and life is taking a massive change in the last 6 to 8 weeks. But I just want to say one small thing to the NIHS, which is kol hakavod and amazing for arranging all this Sjioer. And you know, Torah never has a break. And even though we can't go to shul, and even though many Sjioer and get-togethers have stopped, but this is beautiful how the NIHS, and a special thank you to Mrs. Rabbi, who has put together this Sjioer, and others amongst NIHS. Kol hakavod, amazing, beautiful. I think that for tonight's Sjioer, it might be better if, because it's not around the table and it's not in public, everyone together, if questions and answers we could do more towards the end. Otherwise, it might get a little bit complicated if people unmute and then ask a question in the middle, and might get, from experience with Zoom, it gets a little bit complicated if we have disturbances in the middle. But if someone feels that they have to ask in the middle, they're more than welcome, but perhaps we should leave the last 5 or 10 minutes to open questions. Okay, as our chairman said tonight, the topic that we're discussing is the halachot of bringing in Shabbat early in the summer months. So there's many different parts to this topic. We're going to discuss them step by step, and then hopefully by the end of the Sjioer this evening will be lot clearer in exactly how this bringing in Shabbos in the middle of, let's call it Friday afternoon, when it's light outside and the sun shining through the room and you're making Kiddush and you're singing Lechadoidi. How does that all work? Is it Friday? Is it Shabbos? I can just do what I want for convenience sake. How does this go? How does it work? So as a small introduction, I want to share with you something very interesting. We say in davening, on Shabbos, in the Tefillah in Shmoneh Esrei, we say, Yismach Moshe b'matnat chelko. Yismach Moshe b'matnas chelko. Moshe was so happy with the portion. And the question is, what has Moshe got to do with this portion of Shabbos more than anyone else? Why are we mentioning Moshe, especially when it comes to the Shabbat? So I heard a very interesting answer, and that is that when Moshe was in Mitzrayim, he was living in the house of Paro. He himself wasn't in slavery, but he was watching over the Jews about living in the home of the king of Egypt, Paro. And he had a wonderful idea. Moshe was thinking to himself, it's not possible for the Jews to work 7 days in a week. How is it possible for anyone to work 7 days? I'm going to go to Paro and tell Paro, give them 1 day off. And that way, they will be able to work even better the rest of the days. If they work 7 days a week, their work won't be as good as if they work only 6 days a week. And Paro said to Moshe, you know what? I like the idea. I'll give them 1 day a week off, and they'll work 6 days a week, and those 6 days will be better work. And Moshe said to Paro, you know which day I think you should give them off? The 7th day. And through that idea of Moshe, Paro gave them 1 day off, and they had Shabbos off. Moshe's intention was that the Jews should keep Shabbat, even though it was before Matan Torah, but still, we know the Ovos HaKadoshim, they kept as much of the Torah. Paro listened and the Jews had Shabbos off, even when they were in Mitzrayim. So that's why we mentioned in the Tefillah on Shabbat, Yismach Moshe, because Moshe had a special portion when it came to Shabbat, because he got the Jews in Egypt to keep off Shabbos. So we see from this that to work 7 days a week is not good for us. We'll work even better on those 6 days if we have 1 day off. Now there's another very, very interesting medrash, and then we'll come to the idea of bringing in Shabbos early. The medrash tells us, just to hold on a second, does everyone hear me clearly? Okay, very good. As they say, thumbs up, very good. Okay, so there's a very interesting medrash. The medrash tells us that when a person brings in Shabbos early, he becomes a shutaf. A shutaf means a partner with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does that mean? A person is a partner, is a shutaf with HaKadosh Baruch Hu because he brings in Shabbos early? What does that mean? You're in business with HaKadosh Baruch Hu just because you're born in Shabbos 20 minutes early? What does that mean? How does that make sense? And the answer is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with his mouth, with dibur. When we bring in Shabbos early, we're just saying words. Or we're saying, Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, or we'll see later on in the shir exactly when Shabbos actually is chal, when you bring it in early. But whatever it is, it's with your words. With words, you can bring Shabbos early, 20 minutes, half an hour, we'll see later how much. But it's only with words. So the Medrash tells us, when you bring in Shabbos early, you're like a shutaf. You're a partner with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because the same way as HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world and the 7 days that we have, he created it with words. When a person brings in Shabbos early, he says, or he says, Baruch Hu, it's with words, and that's it. Words alone. And with words, you can bring in Shabbos early. So let's get down to the idea of this bringing in Shabbos early. Now, just as an interesting side point, Shabbos comes at the end of the week, but Shabbos happens to be a seventh of our life. The same way as it's 1 day a week, if I would take our life of 120 years, about 17 years of those years is Shabbos. It's a high proportion. It's a seventh. So the halachos of Shabbos are not just a one-off. They're something that comes every single week. So to understand this idea of bringing in Shabbos, I think it's something which is extremely, extremely important, especially now in the summer months when it's only dark outside at about 10 or 11 o'clock, in midsummer after 11. What's the earliest time we can bring in Shabbos, and how does it work that we can just say something and Shabbos comes in early? Let's start from the beginning. Let's start in the normal Shabbos in the winter. The normal Shabbos in the winter, we have less problems because we're not trying to bring in Shabbos early, and it's a regular Friday, it gets dark, and we have Shabbos. Let's just take a Shabbos in the middle of the winter, when Shabbos, for argument's sake, the sun goes down and it's dark at 6 o'clock, and Sjioer means when the sun starts going down, is at 5 o'clock. So the time between 5 and 6 is what we call Bein Hashmoshos, the gray area. It's not Friday and it's not Shabbos, 100 for sure. So until 5 o'clock, the sun is shining. From 6 o'clock, it's dark. So between 5 and 6, this 1 hour, we call Bein Hashmoshos. It's between times. It's between 2 days. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows when it's Friday, when it's Shabbos. We don't know exactly the time. So Sjioer is the beginning of the gray area, which is 5 o'clock for argument's sake. 6 o'clock is the end of the gray area, which is what we call Nacht, Seis HaKechovim, when the stars come out. So take a Shabbos in the winter where Nacht is at 6 o'clock and Sjioer is at 5. So we want to bring in Shabbos the latest time to bring in Shabbos would be at Sjioer. Why? Because once it's after Sjioer, it's already a gray area. It could be it's already Shabbos. So the latest time we could bring in Shabbos, the Mishnah Berurah writes in Siman Reish Samach Aleph. I'll bring it up. I hope it's okay if I'm going to share some of the screen soon. Is that okay? If I do a share screen? Okay. So in a moment, I'll bring up the Shulchan Aruch and the Psukim. I'll share the screen with me so you can see it inside. Sjioer will be at 5. The latest time is at 5 o'clock. We can bring in Shabbos. Now, the Mishnah Berurah writes, and this is something that we all know, the 18 minutes before Sjioer. I'm sure most of you have heard this idea of 18 minutes before Sjioer, we should light the Shabbat candles. 18 minutes before Sjioer. So the Mishnah Berurah says, he gets that from, I don't remember the name of the sefer, he brings it down, and he says that it's about a third, what we call a halachot of a mil, 18 minutes. The Gemara tells us it takes to walk a certain distance. It's about a third of an hour, a little bit less. 18 minutes before Sjioer is the time that a person should bring in Shabbos early. Now, I'm going to bring up over here a pasuk where this whole concept of bringing in Shabbos early starts. I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share screen. So those of you who have a computer will see it better. On a phone, it might be a little bit harder. I'm going to share desktop. Okay, so you should see my screen, and I'm going to bring you up a pasuk over here. Okay, I don't see you, but you should see my screen. Here is very interesting. These are psukim referring to Yom Kippur. Nothing got to do with Shabbos. This is a psukim which discuss Yom Kippur. And from here is the beginning of this whole idea of bringing in anything, Shabbos or Yom Tov or Yom Kippur, bringing in early. The pasuk says as follows. I hope you should be able to see the pasuk over here. This is in Parshas Emor. For those of you who want to look it up, Perek Chof Gimel, pasuk Lamed Aleph 23:31, and pasuk 32, which is Lamed Beis. The pasuk says as follows, referring to Yom Kippur: Kol melacha lo yisasu, do not work whatever. Chukas olam ledoiro yiseichem b'chol moishvo yiseichem. It's a law forever through all your generations and all your settlements. Okay? Now let's have a look at the next pasuk. And this is the most important pasuk with regard to bringing in anything early. The pasuk says like this. Again, this is talking about Yom Kippur. Shabbos Shabbosoin hu lochem. This day of Yom Kippur shall be a complete rest for you. Ve'inisem es nafshoiseichem. You should afflict yourself. He translated self-denial. Besisha lachodesh bo'erev. On the 9th day of the month in the evening. May erev ad erev, from evening to evening, you shall observe your Shabbat. So this pasuk over here, I'm just going to stop sharing screen. I'm going to come back. So you should have seen it. You saw that? Okay, so that's a pasuk talking about Yom Kippur, which says from night to night, you should keep Yom Kippur. And the Gemara and everyone explains that why does it say from night to night by Yom Kippur? Every day in the Jewish calendar starts from night. Why is Yom Kippur written from night to night? It doesn't say that by anywhere else. And the Gemara and the halachot say very clearly that there's the idea of bringing in Yom Kippur early. So even though the day starts on the 10th of Tishri, a little bit before, Be'erev, a little bit before the 10th, which is the 9th of Tishri, the end of the day, start Yom Kippur. So this is the first place where we see, and actually the only place where we see this concept of bringing in Yom Kippur early. Now, the Shulchan Aruch writes, and I'm going to bring it up now, right now. I'm going to share the screen again. Before I share it, let me just tell you what the Shulchan Aruch is going to say. He says that a person not only should bring in Yom Kippur early, a person should bring in Shabbos early also. And let me share that with you, that you can see it inside in the Shulchan Aruch. I'm just going to share my screen so you can have a look. Okay, so here is the Shulchan Aruch. This is Shulchan Aruch in Oirach Chaim Reish Samach Aleph. That's 261. Halacha base. He writes very clearly. Yesh oimrim. Some say shetzorich lahoisif mechoil al hakodesh. And as he translates over here in the English, there are those who say that we must add from the weekday to the holy day. This is Shulchan Aruch Oirach Chaim Reish Samach Aleph Sif Beis. So here the Shulchan Aruch says very clearly that even though the Pasuk is talking about Yom Kippur, but by Shabbos and by Yom Tov, a person should add on to Friday to add on to the extra, to the Shabbos that we have. So this is the beginning. This is the source where we see that there's a mitzvah to add onto the days of Shabbos. So if Shabbos, let's say Sjioer is at 5 o'clock, a person should add, because after Sjioer, that's not called adding. After Sjioer, it's already maybe the next day. So we're supposed to add. Adding, says the Mishnah Berurah, you should do a minimum, you should do is 18 minutes for Hadlokas Neiros. Now, the question that we have is the summer. Let's take this week. This week is Parashas Emor. Actually, this is the pasuk is mentioned this week's parasha. Shabbos is going to cut. It only gets dark outside at about 10 o'clock, let's say. So Sjioer is about 9 o'clock, 9:15. So a person wants to bring in Shabbos early. So number one, we saw there's a mitzvah to bring in early. Okay, there's a mitzvah. But how much early can you bring it in? Can you bring in Shabbos on Friday morning? So let's look again at the Shulchan Aruch. I'm just going to share my screen again. The Shulchan Aruch says, over here in the Ramah, I'm going to just where my server is. He writes like this. Hagor, this is the Ramah writing. V'imroitza lahakdim, if a person wants to bring in or lekabel and accept or love upon himself HaShabbos, mi plag hamincha. Plag hamincha is an hour and a quarter before Sjioer. Horashus b'yodoi. Horashus b'yodoi means he's allowed to. So here the Ramah says very clearly that the earliest time a person can bring in Shabbos is an hour and a quarter before Sjioer. Now this hour and a quarter we have to take into account is what we call sha'ot zmaniyot. It's not an hour and a quarter on the clock. It's splitting the day into 12 parts, taking each part as 1 hour. So if the day would be 18 hours in the middle of the summer, from when it gets light till it gets dark, each part of that 12, each hour would be about an hour and a half. That would be considered 1 hour. That's called sha'ot zmaniyot. So an hour and a quarter before Sjioer, that's the earliest time a person can accept mincha. That's called from plag hamincha, a person can accept Shabbos. Okay, so let's just think what we've seen so far, and then we get into some complications. What we've seen so far is, number one, we learn from Yom Kippur that a person should bring in Yom Kippur early. Says the Shulchan Aruch, we saw in Reish Samach Aleph, that there's a mitzvah, just like by Yom Kippur to bring in early, a person should bring in Shabbos and Yom Tov also early. We saw the Ramah, which is Reb Moshe Isserlis, and that's how we paskin, that the earliest time a person can bring in Shabbos is Plag HaMincha, which is an hour and a quarter before Sjioer. So for example, if this Shabbos at 6 o'clock I want to be Mekabel Shabbos, this Friday night, it's too early. It's long before Plag HaMincha. It's long before an hour and a quarter before Sjioer. It's mid-Friday. There's no connection to Shabbos. The earliest time is an hour and a quarter before Sjioer. From then you can bring in Shabbos. Okay, now we have some complications, and that is Friday night, I bring in Shabbos early. What does that mean? Does that mean it is completely Shabbos? Is it got all the halachos of Shabbos? Is it night? Is it everything for all halachos and for all concerns, it's completely Shabbos? Or no, it's lighter, it's not yet Shabbos, because look, it's if I ask you, if I go to the street and I ask someone, what day is it today? And I tell him, well, for me, it's already Saturday. But he'll say to you, your day starts when it gets dark outside. Yeah, but I already accepted the next day. He'll look at you as if you're mad. You've accepted the day upon yourself? Yeah, for me, it's already Shabbat. Okay, so we know we can accept Shabbat upon ourselves. But to how far, to what extent is it really Shabbos? And is there a possibility perhaps of saying, no, it's Friday. Let's go like this. The Rishonim explain that since the source for bringing in Shabbos early is from Yom Kippur, and when it says me'erev ad erev, when from night to night in Yom Kippur, is referring to the melachos of Yom Kippur. When we are mekabel, when a person brings in Shabbos early, so this week a person, let's call it at 8:30 or 8 o'clock, whenever it is, a person brings in Shabbos long before Shkia. 8 o'clock Friday night, he says, Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, and he accepts upon himself Shabbat. Or he lights the candles and he says, L'hadlik Nesh Shabbos. He accepts upon himself Shabbos. The Rishonim explain that what's actually going on is that he's accepting upon himself all the melachos of Shabbos. The 39 melachos that are forbidden on Shabbos, I am bringing upon myself with this Tosfos Shabbos, with bringing in Shabbos early. I am bringing it on upon myself already from an hour and a quarter before Pelag HaMincha. So now, a person at 8 o'clock this Friday night says to himself, well, we all davening at home, so it's not together in shul where we are singing L'chodaydi, or it's not together where we're singing Baruch Hu. Everyone at home in their own house is saying to themselves at 8 o'clock, okay, I'm lighting the candles and I'm accepting upon myself Shabbat. What happens if we're all holding by counting the Sphira? These are the months, the weeks where we count the Sphira, and a person forgot to count Sphira. Let's say the day of Sphira is day 30. Friday was day 30, and Shabbos is day 31. Friday, he forgot to count Sphira. He forgot to count number 30. And now at 8 o'clock on Friday night, he accepted upon himself Shabbos. Can he still count Friday, day 30? Yes or no? So, on the one hand, he's accepted Shabbos. In his mind, it's Shabbos. I'm singing L'chodaydi. I'm about to make Kiddush. These are all Shabbos things. Shabbos Sphira is day 31. But it's still light outside, and he forgot to count day 30 from Friday. So the halacha is that he can still count day 30 from Friday. Why is that? Because, like we just said, a person accepts upon himself, when he brings in Shabbos early, he accepts upon himself that I am now also for all the melachos that are on Shabbos. All lamates melachos are now also for me. So as soon as he accepts upon himself that, it doesn't mean that it is now actually Shabbos. It happens to be Friday. He brings in all the melachos of Shabbos, he brings upon himself an hour and a quarter or 2 hours earlier, 2 hours before Nacht, an hour and a quarter before Shkia. It doesn't mean that now it is Shabbos, Shabbos, Shabbos. It means it's also for him to do melachos. But if he's forgotten to count Sphira, no problem. he counts day 30. Of course, it's better to do it before. But if he hasn't counted Sfira from day 30, no problem. He's allowed to count Sfira on, even though he's been Mekabel Shabbos. Now, I want to share with you an interesting story, which happened to me personally. It's a bit of a personal story, but I want to share it with you. About 3 years ago, my wife was due to have a baby on Shabbos. The due date was Shabbos, and it was in the summer. It was this time of the year. It was actually July, the date of birth of my daughter. This is my youngest daughter. Her name is Chaya. She is born on the 7th of July. 7th of July, 2017. Easy date to remember, 7/7/17. Okay, so this is on a Friday afternoon in the middle of the summer in July. And I'm living here in Amsterdam. And my wife is due to have a baby. Now we know that if anyone needs to go to hospital on Shabbos, you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos, to go into hospital, Pikuach Nefesh, anything for saving life, no problem. Of course, you can go into Shabbos, you can go into the hospital on Shabbos in the ambulance, in the car, and whatever she or the choila, the ill person, needs, one is allowed to be Mechal Shabbos for the choila. I had the following question. This was the story. It was Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, at about 8 o'clock in midsummer. And my wife started having contractions. She started feeling that I might be going into labor at the moment. Now, midsummer, Sjioer was about 10 o'clock. And Amsterdam were being Mekabel Shabbos, I think it was that week, about 8:10, 8:20. Now, if my wife will have to go into hospital, obviously, I would have to be Mekabel Shabbos. So she would go with, and I would go with her to hospital. Because, as we said, for choila, if someone's not well, you're allowed to be Mekabel Shabbos. But my question was as follows. I had this thought, I went through my mind, and I still had time to quickly call my father, who's a rabbi in London, and I asked him the following question. This was my question. Either I could be Mekabel Shabbos like everyone else is at 8:20, and in half an hour's time or an hour's time, if my wife's contractions and the labor gets worse and she has to go into hospital, I'll have to be Mekabel Shabbos. So I'll be in the Mekabel Shabbos at 8:20, and if at 9 o'clock I end up going to hospital being Mekabel Shabbos, so be it, because I have to do that for the choila, for my wife. Or perhaps it's better not to be Mekabel Shabbos. Don't be Mekabel Shabbos at 8:20. Wait and see what happens. And if she has to go into hospital at 9 o'clock, then I haven't yet been Mekabel Shabbos. If I haven't yet been Mekabel Shabbos, then I'm not being Mechal Shabbos, because I haven't yet been Mekabel Shabbos, and then I can wait till 15 minutes before Shkia. So that was my question. Should I be Mekabel Shabbos early and then perhaps half an hour later be Mechal Shabbos? Or no, don't be Mekabel Shabbos and wait till later to see what happens, and then I might not have to be Mechal Shabbos because I wasn't yet being Mekabel Shabbos. So, halacha l'maaseh, actually what I did at the time, it was still just before Shabbos in Amsterdam. I managed to call my father, and he advised me then what to do was not to be Mekabel Shabbos, because he held that it was better to be Mekabel Shabbos later, even though everyone was being Mekabel Shabbos early. But you stay at home, you're not being Mechal Shabbos before her siyah at all. If you'll have to go into hospital, it'll be before you were Mekabel Shabbos. That's what I did. The end of the story was, Baruch Hashem, my wife gave birth, and the baby was born before Shkia. So any Chil Shabbos which I needed to do was all at home, and I still managed to be Mekabel Shabbos before Shkia without any problem. So let's go back to our discussion about bringing Shabbos early, and then I want to share with you one or two small thoughts, and then we can go to some open questions. We mentioned before about Sfiras HaOmer, and that is that if a person forgot to count Sfiras HaOmer, no problem, he can count Sfiras HaOmer even though he was Mikabel Shabbos. Another example where we see that it's not yet Shabbos, it's got a halacha of Friday, when you're Mikabel Shabbos early, but you're not allowed to do any malachas. I'll give you an example. We know there's a mitzvah of tzitzis. The mitzvah of tzitzis, to put tzitzis on a four-cornered garment, that is a mitzvah which is only by day. It's a day mitzvah, it's not a night mitzvah. How do we know that tzitzis is only a day mitzvah? Because the Torah says, Ureisem oisoi uzachartem. Ureisem means you should see. You should see your tzitzis. If you don't see your tzitzis, which is what we call nighttime, it's not a time for mitzvah. So there's no mitzvah to wear tzitzis by night because it's not a beged, which is it's not a time where you see. A person is Mikabel Shabbos early in the summer. Do we say that now it's already Shabbos? And there's no mitzvah anymore for him to wear tzitzis. It's already Shabbos. It's already night. It's already night. There's no mitzvah of tzitzis. So the answer is, here again, it's not night. It's Friday. Friday by day, of course, there's a mitzvah of tzitzis. You have accepted upon yourself the al-malachas of Shabbos, and that's it. That means it's Friday afternoon. You can still count Sfira. You still got a mitzvah of tzitzis. The only thing is, the malachas of Shabbos are now forbidden upon yourself because you accepted and you did a mitzvah of bringing in Shabbos early. Another example would be, if a person is nifter and he has to start counting Shiva, then halacha l'maisa, I think we paskin that the first day of Shiva would be on a Friday, even though he accepted Shabbos early, because it's not yet dark outside, it's not yet Nacht, Friday would be the first day. Now here comes something very interesting. We live here in Amsterdam. I don't know if everyone who's logged in is here in Amsterdam, but I guess so. But we live in Amsterdam where everyone in normal circumstances, not now through Corona and the virus, where everyone's living their own life at home. In general sense, through a normal tkufa, a normal time, everyone accepts Shabbos at the same time. Now, I grew up in a place called Stamford Hill in London. Stamford Hill today is a very Hasidic town, where I would say it's similar to perhaps Williamsburg in America. It's a very, very, very Hasidic place. Hasidim, many of them are not into this bringing in Shabbos so early. They liked to daven Mariv with Nacht when it's dark outside. So, when I was growing up in Stamford Hill in London, I would go with my father to shul. We would daven mincha early on in the middle of the summer, about 7 o'clock. And we would walk home from shul, and there's all the Hasidim driving around their cars. And I remember I would say to my father, hey, Daddy, I don't understand. For us at Shabbos, Hasidic Yidden driving around Stamford Hill, how does this work? And he would tell me, we Makabel Shabbos, and they're not Makabel Shabbos. So we don't see that so much over here, because here in Amsterdam, everyone's Makabel Shabbos at the same time, so we don't walk around in the street after Mariv and see other Yidden driving around. But in many places, in Eretz Yisrael and London, many places, there's many different kehillas, and it doesn't mean just because one kehillah accepted Shabbos early, does everyone need to accept. If it's a place where everyone accepts together, a person should accept together. If it's in a place where everyone does whatever they want, then no problem. A person can do whatever they want. You don't have to bring in Shabbos earlier just because the next door neighbor did. So, what would be, and I remember when I was at home as a boy, where we came home from shul and let's say we forgot to put the light on in one of the bedrooms, or we needed the malacha done for us in our house. So in general, a person's allowed to ask a goy, no problem. You ask a goy, can you do malacha for me on Shabbos? And you're supposed to do it beremiza, and you hint to the goy. can I ask my fellow Yid, Hasidic Yid, who's my next door neighbor, to do malacha for me on Shabbos? And the answer is, the Shulchan Aruch says very clearly, that is absolutely no problem. No problem. You were Makabel Shabbos, he wasn't Makabel Shabbos, so you can ask him to do a malacha for you. No problem. Just because you're Makabel, it doesn't mean that the other person cannot do a malacha for you. For him, for you it's Shabbos, for him it's not Shabbos. Now, let's go back to the second to Adlokas Neres, where sometimes it can get a little bit complicated. A person's living at home with his wife, and his wife asks the husband, what time Shabbat? What time is Kabbalat Shabbat? So the husband looks in the calendar says, whatever, let's call it 4:42. 4:42 is 18 minutes before Shkia. Shkia is 5 o'clock. 4:42, 18 minutes before 5 o'clock. The husband says to the wife, light the candles. Okay. So the wife lights the candles and she's Mekabat Shabbat. What's about the husband? Is the husband automatically in Nigra goes after the wife? The husband's still going to shul. The husband's still driving to shul. The husband's still going and doing the last bits and pieces before Shabbat. Now it's very interesting that it's a min. I think the Mishnah Berurah writes it's a minig which is accepted amongst Klal Yisrael, that if there's a house where there's a man and a lady, a woman always lights the candles. It's a mitzvah which was accepted upon the women, that they do the hadlakat neirot, they light the candles. As soon as they light the candles, they accept upon themselves Shabbat. The husband has not yet accepted Shabbos because he wants to still drive to shul. He still wants to do a couple of things. He can accept Shabbos a few minutes later or a different time, not dependent on his wife. The other way around, the husband accepting Shabbos, a wife should never accept Shabbos after the husband, but a husband can accept Shabbos after the wife. It's an interesting thing. What comes out is that a person wants to daven mincha on Friday, which is a tefillah which belongs still to Friday. Mariv belongs to Shabbos. So if if the husband accepts upon himself Shabbos, when he's going to shul or when he's in shul, how does that mincha still work after he accepted Shabbos? And taking it a little bit further, these Hasidim in Stanford Hill, whoever they are, who throughout the year they daven mincha longer after Shkia because they hold the Shkia later than our Shkia. No one does melacha after Shkia on Friday afternoon because the Mishnah Berurah, the Chofetz Chaim, about 80 years ago wrote, and that's something which was accepted by everyone. After Shkia on Friday, it's already a time when where it's 100% also b'melacha. We bring in Shabbos early, after Shkia for sure not. But the Hasidim must still daven mincha for another 45 minutes. And the answer is similar, or on the same lines as we said before, that this idea of bringing in Shabbos early, or at least from Shkia, is a halacha that from now all the melachas of Shabbos are also. Whether it's from, let's call it Shkia is at 5, so from 4:45 or from 4:30. But when it comes to a tefillah, when it comes to a davening, and that's what the Hasidim do, they'll daven later, they'll daven after 5 o'clock, because that tefillah is something which they held every day you can daven after Shkia. So they'll daven a bit later, no problem. But the melachas will never accept after Shkia. I just want to share with you something very interesting. And that is, there's a medrash that tells us the following. The medrash tells us, I'll read you out the words of the medrash, and they go as follows. Ukeshem she'onu moisifim mechoil al hakodesh, the same way as we add on from weekday onto Shabbos, kach hakodesh baruch hu Yosef nu mechoil al hakodesh. The Medrash is saying as follows. I'll translate. The Medrash says like this. The same way as we do something so beautiful, we add on from Shabbos onto weekday. We take Friday and the last half an hour, 18 minutes, whatever it is on Friday, we make it Shabbos. We are adding from a weekday day onto a Shabbos day. So too, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will add Mechoil al HaKodesh from weekday to Shabbos. Now, what does that mean? The same way as we add from weekday to Shabbos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will add from weekday to Shabbos. And I heard once a beautiful explanation. And I think it's really relevant for our times that we're living through. And that is, what is the ultimate Kodesh? Kodesh is the holy times in Mitzvah Hashem when the Geula comes. When all of us together will be living together after Mashiach, we'll be living in Yisrael, or we'll be living in here, wherever it is in Amsterdam, even after Mashiach comes. But the time when Mashiach is here is a time what's called Kodesh. It's a holy time. It's going to be a beautiful time. The time that we're living through now is called a time of Chol. Chol is we're living in weekday times, in harder times, especially the times that we're living through right now. That's called Chol. Kodesh is the future. The Medrash is telling us, Keshem, just like we add onto Kodesh, we bring in Shabbos earlier. We want to have Shabbos a little bit more. So too, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will add onto his Shabbos, which is the Kodesh in the future. That means the Geula will come earlier. It's an unbelievable medrash. We see from this medrash that from bringing in Shabbos earlier, not only on the actual Friday do we have the opportunity to have an earlier Shabbos, this actually, says the medrash, could be a cause for the Shabbos for the Geula to come earlier. Because the same way as we add on to Shabbos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will add on to Shabbos. He'll bring in the Geula earlier. And that could be also, I was thinking, when we know the Gemara tells us that if Klal Yisrael, the whole Klal Yisrael kept two Shabbosim, we will have the Geula. Why? Because Shabbos itself has the koyach by keeping it to bring the Geula. And just before we come to some questions and some other things, I want to share with you something very interesting, that a question that many ask and different forums discuss it, and that is, on a regular Shabbos, we take out in Shul one Sefer Torah. And what do we read from that Sefer Torah? The Parsha of the Shavua. This week was Acharim Es Kedoshim, and the coming Shabbos is going to be Parshas Emor. And so on throughout the year, every Shabbos, we take out one Sefer Torah and we read from that Sefer Torah the Parshat HaShavua. And the question is, why don't we take out two Sifrei Torah every Shabbos? One for the Parshat HaShavua, and the second one for the Korban Musaf, which we read in every Yom Tov. That means every Yom Tov, we take out two Sifrei Torah. One for the reading of the Yom Tov, and the second one is the reading of the Korban Musaf. Now, every Shabbos has a Korban Musaf. So every Shabbos, we should have two Sifrei Torah. One, the Parshat HaShavua, and number two, the Parsha of the Korban Musaf. Now, I'll share my screen with you a second, and you'll see, I'm going to share my screen. Hold on a sec. If you look over here, this is in Parshas Pinchos. This is the Korban Musaf of Shabbos. The Pasuk says, Uvayoim HaShabbos, and on Shabbos, you should bring extra korbanos What korban is that? Shnei chvosim b'nei shana tamimim, 2 young lambs, u'shnei esroinim soiles mincha belulo v'ashemen v'niskoi. Carries on the next pasuk, oilas shabbos b'shabbatoi, al oilas hatomid v'nisko. In addition for the regular korban. So besides the regular korban, every day, we had another korban, which was the korban musaf of Shabbos in Parshas Pinchos, which I'm reading to you over here. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. If you want to look it up, as we know this pasuk in Parshas Pinchos, Perik Chof Ches Pasuk Tes 28:9. So the question is, why don't we read this every Shabbos? These are psukim, which is a korban musaf. The same as we read every Shabbos, every Yom Tov, the korban musaf and the second Torah. On a normal Shabbos, every Shabbos have 2 Sefer Torah, one for Parshas HaShavua and another one for the korban musaf. There's many different answers. There's about 10 different answers. I want to share with you one answer today. And this is connected to what we were saying just before. And that is that the korban musaf of Shabbos is very different to the korban musaf of every other Yom Tov. And that is that the korban musaf of Shabbos, like we just now saw in the pasuk, is uviyom HaShabbos shnei chvosim b'nei shana tamimim, or just 2 young lambs. Nothing got to do with the chatos, nothing got to do with the kapara. Every other korban musaf on Yom Tov is connected to kapara, to forgiveness. The korban musaf on Shabbos is not connected to kapara, is not connected to forgiveness. The reason for that is because Shabbos itself has the power of kapara, has the power of forgiveness in it. We don't need the korban musaf to give us the forgiveness. Shabbos itself has that power. So therefore, we don't read it, because we only read it if the korban is connected to kapara, to forgiveness. The korban of Shabbos has no connection to forgiveness. It's not a korban chatos. It's shnei chavosim b'nei shana tamimim, like we just saw. Therefore, there's no inyan to read it, because Shabbos itself has that power. This is something so beautiful. When we're talking about bringing in Shabbos early, number one, like we saw at the beginning, number one, we learn from Yom Kippur that there's a mitzvah to add on to Shabbos. There's a mitzvah to add on. We saw in the Ramah, in Reish Samach Aleph, in the Shulchan Aruch, I shared with you before, and that is the maximum amount of time you can bring in early is from Plag HaMincha. So there's a mitzvah, but even that mitzvah has a limit. That limit is Plag HaMincha. We just now see that because Shabbos has such an unbelievable power, that it's a power of kapara, it's a power of forgiveness, and that's why we don't have to read the korban musaf on Yom Kippur. Why wouldn't we want to bring in Shabbos early? That bringing in Shabbos early is something like we saw before, like we said before, is something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not only a shutaf with you, because we said that when you just say Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos and you accept upon yourself the Shabbos, it has the koyach of bringing in Shabbos early. It's something that we mentioned the Medrash. Just like you will add on to Kodesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will add on to Kodesh. If you bring in Shabbos early, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring his Shabbos early. And that is the Shabbos of the Geula. Now, I hope everyone managed to hear me properly. If anyone has any questions, they can unmute. There's obviously, like we said, there's a lot more to discuss, because lots of complications about bringing in Shabbos early. But in general, the idea and the concept is that to bring in Shabbos early is a mitzvah. The makor, the source for that, is Yom Kippur. And if a person does bring that early, we should hope, like the Medrash tells us, just like us bringing in Shabbos early is adding on to Kodesh, we hope that the Geula, which, I don't know about you, but when I came into the beginning of this whole Corona business, I thought we will be Pesach and Etzrol Mashiach. Unfortunately, I don't know, Mashiach didn't come yet. I'm not sure where he got stuck. I'm not sure. Maybe because, I don't know, the airport's closed, he got stuck. I don't know what happened. But Mashiach got stuck somewhere. I was sure that we were going to spend, I told my wife, we're going to spend Israel, we'll be in Israel for Pesach. It didn't work out yet. But we're definitely living in times when I would have thought Mashiach would be here. But let's at least from this shir that we'll discuss tonight, that the bringing in Shabbos early is adding on to Kodesh, and we should hope that Kodesh Baruch Hu will also add on to his Kodesh, which is the Geula, and that should also come early. Any questions? Any Horus? By the way, if anyone wants any more sources or any more interesting on this topic, you can always email me on yudunner@gmail.com. That's yu for Yitzchok Uri. I know that I'm known as Gury, and I think even today's email from NIHS went out as Gary Dunner, Gary. That's an extension of my nickname, so it came from Gury to Gary. I do have a real name also. Those who don't know, it's Yitzchok Uri. So Yitzchok Uri became Gury somehow over the years, but Yitzchok Uri is YU. So my email address is yudunner@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to share. Have here what they call my requirements, some source on this topic. There's plenty more to discuss, but in general, that's the idea about bringing in Shabbos early. And once again, thanks to Ruben, again to Mrs. Rabo, and thanks again for everyone who organizes this beautiful shiurim and get-togethers during these, let's call it turbulent times. Any questions or any horrors? Was there anything that was unclear or anything that you missed?
Clear.